2 weeks ago, I posted a survey with a set of 35 categories for a Family Feud style game night with friends on Reddit. However, I actually posted 2 versions of this survey, one in English and one in German on a German language subreddit. I was curious to see whether there would be any significant differences in the answers. Now, obviously this was not a scientific study and I will not make any claims in that direction. I didn't even ask the participants for the nationality, and there could well have been some people who actually participated in both the English and the German survey. And the overall number of participants was far too small to have any claim of being representative. But even with these caveats, I thought I would also make this video presenting the results regardless, in case other people are as curious as I was. And did I get results that differ significantly between the English and the German language surveys? I would say so. And I already got quite some differences in the very first category. That category was: name a European city you would love to visit once, but would not want to live there. In the English survey, where I got 169 responses, Paris was the clear winner, being picked by 20% of participants. In the German survey, where I only got 56 responses, Paris was also up high, but had to share the top spot with Berlin and London. London was the 4th highest in the English survey, and Berlin wasn't mentioned at all. In fact, this is the biggest difference between the English and the German survey. In the German survey, German cities make up 41% of the answers, whereas in the English survey, not a single German city was mentioned at all. If you look at the map, you can instantly see that uneven distribution. Blue are the cities that were only mentioned in the English survey, red the ones that were only mentioned in the German survey, and purple those that were mentioned in both. The second category was basically the same, just for a US city. For this I got 170 responses in the English survey, but only 40 in the German. If we look at the top 3 spots, things look very similar. New York is at the very top on both sides, and then it's Los Angeles and Las Vegas. On the German side, these 2 cities tied. On the English side, almost so. But the next one on the English side is Miami, being mentioned 14 times, but not a single time in the German survey. San Francisco is pretty even on both sides, but New Orleans, still getting picked 11 times on the English side, doesn't even appear once on the German side. I made a map for this one as well, and I have to admit that I had to look up the locations of several cities. For example, I had no idea that there even was a place called Germantown, but someone who participated in the German survey obviously did. Also, there was someone on the English side who picked a place called Nuuk. Where is Nuuk? Well, you can find it in the northeast on this map, on this mostly white landmass called Greenland. I then asked for the best breed for a family dog. And both the English and German surveys had one thing in common. It was a 2-dog race. On the English side, the Golden Retriever came out on top with 50 votes over the Labrador Retriever with 43. And then the next highest score was only 6 votes. On the German side, the Golden Retriever only got the silver medal, getting 1 vote less than the German Shepherd. In the English survey, the German Shepherd was only mentioned 3 times. But other than a dog, what would be a great pet for elementary school children? Well, in both surveys most people went for a cat. And the next 4 in both rankings were fish, or specifically goldfish, guinea pigs, hamsters and rabbits. Although these came in a different order in the 2 surveys. Also, dogs and again the German Shepherd were still mentioned 3 times on the German side. Also, please note that the German language does not differentiate between turtles and tortoises. Both are called Schildkröten, which literally translate to shield toads. There are 2 mentions of pet stones on the German side, in one case with the added comment that elementary school children should not have pets on their own. Looking for abbreviations in common use, I got very different results between the English and German surveys. The top answer on the English side was LOL. which was only mentioned once on the German side. Almost as if there's not much to laugh about in German. What got the top spot on the German side was instead the abbreviation of the name of one of the largest German political parties. And there were 3 more abbreviations of German and 1 Austrian political party. Now there's also a later category that features somewhat similar results on the German side that might well be connected to the specific tide that the service had been running. Namely, it was just a couple of weeks before 2 state elections in Germany, meaning there were already election posters out on the streets, prominently featuring these abbreviations of these political parties, or at least of most of them. One that was mentioned here twice doesn't exist anymore. Politics were also obvious on the English side, with ICE and MAGA making it into the top 5, and the ever-growing presence of AI being reflected in this abbreviation, achieving the silver medal, though it wasn't mentioned even once on the German side. Since I posted these surveys on the internet, there's no surprise in getting HTTP a couple of times. But again, it only happened on the English side. Your favorite potato dish? Well, overall it is the French fries, as they come in second, not far behind mashed potatoes in the English survey, but dominated on the German side. If you look at the percentages, French fries were twice as prevalent in the German survey than on the English side. Name your favorite movie star who never won an Academy Award. In this category, I got a tie for the top spot in the English survey between Christopher Lee and Samuel L. Jackson. Neither of them ever won a competitive Academy Award, but Samuel L. Jackson got an honorary Academy Award. I suppose for at least 9 people that didn't count. The same goes for Jackie Chan. There are also some others on this list who actually did win competitive Academy Awards, like Leonardo DiCaprio, who won for his role in The Revenant. And I don't even know what I should do with the results on the German side. There were only 5 answers that were entered more than once, and one of them refers to me personally. Also, this was the category where I got the largest number of different answers. 79 in the English survey and 43 in the German. Other than clothes, name something you never step outside without. One participant in the English survey admitted to sometimes even leaving their clothes behind. On the other hand, there were also several items mentioned in both surveys that I personally would have considered part of clothing, like coats, shirts, shoes, or trousers. And apparently only one person never steps outside without shaving. The top 2 answers were the same in both surveys, but at very different amounts. More than half of the participants in the English survey put keys first, whereas in the German survey the same is true for only 1 in 8. The top answer on the German side was the phone, with 44.6%, which was picked by only 18.7% on the English side. Glasses came in on 3rd place in the English survey, which weren't mentioned at all in the German survey. The category about your favorite video game villain showed me how little of a video gamer I am. Out of the 113 responses in the English survey, 102 were for villains from video games I have never played in my life. So you already know that I could never have encountered the top answer Bowser, who absolutely dominated these results, but was only mentioned twice in the German survey. The top answer on the German side was GLaDOS, which still got 6 votes in the English survey. Sephiroth from Final Fantasy, who tied for 2nd place in the English survey, was only mentioned once in the German survey, and Ganon or Ganondorf, who was the other one in that 2nd place tie, wasn't mentioned at all on the German side. Kane from Command & Conquer, who almost joined that tie, was also only mentioned once in the German survey. It seems we really need such a variety of fragrances of shower gel, since at 152 responses I got 56 different answers on the English side, and even on the German side that had only 48 responses I got 38 different answers. I also decided not to put things together unless they were really synonymous. Otherwise I could have added the votes for lemon, lime and citrus, which would have been a total of 12 votes on the English side, and which would have made it the second highest entry, and 6 votes on the German side, which would have been the clear top entry. As it is, vanilla clearly won on the English side, which was mentioned twice in the German survey, followed by coconut, which in turn was mentioned once on the German side. Now, what do people like to cook in their oven? Apparently not completely the same things. In the English survey, lasagna was picked by more than a quarter of the participants, earning it a top spot, but only by 1 in 7 in the German survey, but still giving it second place. What came out on top in the German survey was pizza, having been picked by more than a third of the participants, whereas in the English survey only 7 out of the 162 participants picked pizza. What do people drink during lunch break at work or at school or university or other places? Mostly coffee and water. And here it is the same in both surveys. But things look very different from the third place downward, as in the English survey, tea comes next, having been picked by almost 1 in 8 participants, whereas in the German survey, it was mentioned only twice. Soda and explicit soft drink brand names are much more prevalent on the English side. What is more prevalent on the German side, though, is beer. Mentioned only 3 times amongst 171 responses on the English side, it reached 12.7% in the German side, making it the third most mentioned lunch break drink. There were other alcoholic beverages mentioned as well. Tomatoes seem to be a popular base for pasta sauce, as pure tomato sauce already tied for the top spot in the English survey for the favorite pasta sauce, and is also a major ingredient in marinara on 3rd place. Tomato cream sauce on 5th place, bolognese on 6th, and more. Bolognese got the top spot on the German side with more than a quarter of all responses, and at least one of the selections that tied for 2nd place also contains tomatoes. Now, minced meat sauce that was also in the tie could of course refer to bolognese as well, but there are other possibilities, which is why I kept this as a distinct entry. My decision not to put various kinds of soda or soft drinks together emphasized the difference in the answer for something that contains too much sugar. While in the English survey the top answer was soda in general, that spot went to Coca-Cola specifically on the German side. Chocolate was high up in both surveys, but cereal, getting the 2nd place in the English survey, wasn't mentioned once on the German side. Mint and its varieties stays at the top in both English and German when it comes to the favorite flavor of toothpaste. Though on the English side there's a bit more room for variety, with almost 8% picking lemon, which wasn't mentioned on the German side at all, and especially several kinds of berries being mentioned, but again much more on the English side. So, you're at work and meet a new employee. Now who could it be who'd make you quit instantly? Now, I didn't ask for the nationality of the people participating in these surveys, but just looking at these results, it seems like the chiefs of states of the 2 countries with the most speakers of these 2 languages selected have won. Or lost. Donald Trump was mentioned by more than a quarter of the participants in the English survey, and also tied for 2nd place on the German side. Friedrich Merz did not reach that share of responses on the German side and was only mentioned once in the English survey. In the English survey, one's ex was the 2nd most commonly mentioned option, which was only mentioned once on German side. Elon Musk made it to 3rd place and wasn't mentioned at all in the German survey. And the same goes for one's mother or mother-in-law, whereas male relatives were mentioned more often on the German side. 5 people mentioned Vladimir Putin on the English side, but no one on the German side. In the German results, Donald Trump tied for the 2nd place with Ukrainians, and also the president of Ukraine was explicitly mentioned once, whereas no one on the English side mentioned Zelensky or Ukrainians in general. The same goes for Turks, who were mentioned 3 times on the German side and never in the English survey. The German survey also features diverse people and transsexuals with an explicitly derogatory term. Diverse was the 4th gender entry introduced in Germany in 2017-2018. Another derogatory term was also used once on the German side that I will not speak out loud, and that was not entered with any asterisks. I mentioned earlier that there might have been a bit of an external influence regarding the selection of common abbreviations due to 2 upcoming state elections in Germany. And this category here seems to be influenced by this as well, since there are quite a lot of politicians from particularly these 2 states mentioned. And here I have to state that I did not manipulate these results. I do state this because I happen to know some of these politicians personally, up to the point that I had the children of one of them sitting on my lap. What do you see almost exclusively at night? Obviously stars, which was the top answer at almost 39% in the English survey, but had to tie for the top spot with the moon in the German survey at only 23%. The moon also made it into the top 3 in the English survey, but at only 7%. The second place in the English survey went to fireflies, which weren't mentioned in the German survey at all, even though I myself have seen fireflies here in Germany. Other wildlife was mentioned on both sides, primarily bats, which made it to 4th place in both surveys. I've also seen bats, but so far only during the day. Did you know that German had a simple word for adapting a book into a movie? It's verfilmen. And this category is about books that have been verfilmed magnificently. As you can see, the top spot on both sides goes to The Lord of the Rings, which is technically not a book but a trilogy. Also, not everyone wrote The Lord of the Rings. There were 5 participants who named the Fellowship of the Ring, 4 who picked The Two Towers, and 1 chose The Return of the King. But that still left a majority of 24 who really did just name the entire thing. But then again, Tolkien actually wrote it as 1 book and was only forced to split it up into 3 books by his publisher, so in this particular case I do not get a raise in heart rate for allowing this one to count as a single book. It's different with Harry Potter though, which definitely is a book series and not a single book chopped up retroactively. Out of a total of 12 nominations of Harry Potter amongst both surveys, only 3 actually wrote down the title of a particular book. Anyway, even with The Lord of the Rings being the top answer twice, the actual relative occurrence is still significantly different, with only 21.8% on the English side but 39% on the German side. Jurassic Park came in 2nd in the English survey, but wasn't mentioned at all in the German survey. The same goes for The Godfather, and Jaws on 4th place in the English survey was only mentioned once on the German side. Also, I noticed that Steven Spielberg overall scored quite well in the English survey. And here's the other side, where I asked for examples of terrible adaptations. If you just look at the top 2 spots on either side, you will see the same books, just in reverse order. But the scale is also very different. Almost a quarter of the participants in the German survey picked Aragon, which is almost twice as frequent as in the English survey. Percy Jackson, coming in on 3rd place in the English survey, wasn't mentioned at all on the German side. World War Z on the 4th place on the English side was only mentioned once in the German survey, and the same goes for Dune and The Dark Tower. Northern Lights also only appears on the English side. Whereas the first Jurassic Park book scored well in the category for good adaptations, so did the second book appear here in the list of bad ones. We are staying with movies and are looking for ones in which a major character becomes ruler of a country. The top answer on the English side was The Lion King, which did make it to a tie for the 3rd place on the German side, but with only 3 mentions. The top answer on the German side was The Lord of the Rings, with 15 responses in total, of which 9 were explicitly for The Return of the King, which made it to a close 2nd place in the English survey with 24 responses in total, of which 19 were for The Return of the King. If you look at the percentages, however, you will see that The Lord of the Rings got over 41% on the German side, but less than 17% in the English survey, which still is quite a big difference. The movies Elizabeth and The King's Speech tied for 4th place in the English survey, but weren't mentioned at all on the German side. In the German survey, Gladiator got the 2nd place, which in turn was only mentioned once on the English side. Name a TV show that was cancelled too soon. Okay, it was Firefly. Let's move on. I already know that this will get me downvotes and angry comments. The category was to name a team sport that doesn't involve a ball, and I did not put ice hockey and hockey together. I am aware that ice hockey is often just called hockey in the US and Canada. I am also aware that hockey usually refers to field hockey in pretty much every other country. So it might well be that some of the people who entered hockey meant ice hockey, while others meant field hockey. And yes, I am also well aware that field hockey is played with a ball and should obviously be an invalid answer. But hockey was also entered in the German survey 3 times. And in German, hockey almost exclusively refers to field hockey, not ice hockey. Also in both surveys were entries of other sports that are very obviously being played with a ball, like water polo, soccer and tennis. So my assumption was that there were at least some participants who either missed the part that this should be about a team sport without a ball, or that they intentionally made a joke entry, and that even while there could well have been some cases of people entering hockey with the intention of meaning ice hockey, there is now no way for me to quantify how many that could have been. So I kept the two separate. Also, speaking of balls, I do have the suspicion that at least some of the people who entered American football tried to imply that the central object of the sport is not an actual ball, as it is not a sphere. So either way, ice hockey won on the English side, which wasn't mentioned nearly as often in the German survey, whereas rowing won on the German side, which still came in second in the English survey. What sport should be added to the Olympics? Again, we got quite different results, as the top answer in the English survey was chess, which was only mentioned once or sort of twice in the German survey. In the German survey, there was a tie for the top spot between car racing, or specifically Formula 1, and bowling. Now, bowling was actually mentioned just as often in the English survey, but due to the much higher number of responses overall, it's not overly high on the list. Car racing wasn't mentioned in the English survey at all. Tied for third in the German survey, we got soccer and climbing. Now, soccer has the same issue as bowling, as it was mentioned 3 times each in both the German and the English survey, but it means it's not even in top 10 on the English side. Also, soccer already is in the Olympics. I also checked on climbing, and I found that it was in the last 2 Summer Olympics, and will also be in the next. So let's look at the English survey. Second place there went to breakdancing. I mean, sure, what could possibly go wrong with that? Also, breakdancing was not mentioned in the German survey at all. Third place went to esports, which appears on the German side with the explicit suggestion of StarCraft, though it is only mentioned once. This question is certainly not typical for Family Feud, but I was simply curious about it. So I asked if the participants could be any age they want, how old would they be? And my goal was not to get a ranking of the various answers, but I primarily aimed for the average age that people would want to be. And as it turned out, there wasn't much of a difference in that between the English and the German survey, with the English side coming in at an average of 25.565 years and the German side at 26.358, which would be 9.5 months difference. With average in the mid-20s, one could expect that there were a lot of answers for ages in the 20s, but this was a point where the 2 sets of results differed. 57.8% of the results in the English survey were ages in the 20s, but in the German survey it was only 32.7%. I also asked the participants whether their wanted age was less than their current age, or whether they were at their wanted age, or whether they wanted to be older. Out of the 161 responses I got in the English survey, 16 didn't make a statement about this. Of the 145 left, 126 stated that they wanted to be younger, and 12 wanted to be older. In the German survey, out of 53, 11 didn't make a statement, and 33 wanted to be younger, and 4 wanted to be older. Also, even with a total of 214 responses, absolutely no one wanted to be my current age. Once more into the big differences with the question if the participants could have any citizenship they want, which would it be? Now, I did not ask for what citizenship they currently possess, so I cannot tell you how many actually wanted different citizenship or already have the one they want, but the results are sure significantly different. More than half of the participants in the German survey chose German citizenship, which was mentioned only 4 times in the English survey, making up just under 2.5%. The English survey, on the other hand, had Canadian citizenship as its top answer at 17.9%, followed by a tie between New Zealand and Ukrainian. Again, I do not know the actual citizenship of the participants, but I could well imagine that this high score for Ukrainian citizenship was in some cases meant as a sign of solidarity, which could also be the case for the 7 participants who chose a Greenlandic, perhaps even the Danish citizenship. Now, whom could the participants of the German survey have shown some solidarity? Oh. The favorite unit of measurement in both surveys was the meter. And for this, I put together every multiple or fraction and reduced everything to its base unit. So every centimeter or kilometer just became the meter. Now you might wonder then why you can see kilogram in these results. Well, the kilogram is the exception from the rule, as it is not the gram, but the kilogram that is the base unit. And the kilogram did take second place in the English survey, but had to tie for third on the German side with the Zentner, and it was beaten by the pound, no less. Name something associated with ghosts. In the German survey, the top answer was Halloween at 23.5%, whereas in the English survey, it was just under 2.4%. In the English survey, the top answer was the Ghostbusters at over 18%, whereas on the German side, it was less than 6%. Another big difference was for superstition, which got second place on the English side, but I put together with faith on the German side. Superstition itself was only mentioned once here. Something that has a lot of holes? Obviously cheese. And specifically Swiss cheese was mentioned 34 times in the English survey. And in the German survey, it was 4 times Swiss cheese and 4 times Emmentaler, which is a Swiss cheese. But after this mutually agreed upon top answer, the results differ quite a lot. Second place in the English survey goes to sponges, which were only mentioned twice on the German side. Whereas there was a tie for second place in the German survey between the German border and streets. Neither the German specifically nor borders in general were mentioned on the English side, though border fence was mentioned, though there was also mentioned once on the German side as a separate item on the list. Streets were also not mentioned in the English survey. Don't you have potholes? The sieves landed on 4th place in the German survey and tied for 4th place in the English survey, and also in both cases with quite similar percentages. But the other item in this tie on the English side was golf courses, which weren't mentioned a single time on the German side. In case you were wondering what the Grundgesetz is, it is what Germany has instead of a constitution. Germany was supposed to get a proper constitution once the German Democratic Republic or East Germany reunited with the German Federal Republic or West Germany, and then there was supposed to be a plebiscite for a unified constitution. East Germany joined West Germany in 1990, but I'm still waiting for the plebiscite and the constitution. What else but letters do you get in the mail? Well, obviously primarily packages. On that at least agree the participants in both surveys. But whereas bills are a close second on the English side, these were only mentioned twice in the German survey. Advertisements, on the other hand, were mentioned not in higher number but in higher frequency on the German side, as were postcards, where just 2 people on the English side received checks, 5 on the German side received money. Magazines and catalogs were mentioned more often in the English survey, whereas no one there mentioned any death threats, which appear 3 times on the German side. Also, where we see letter bombs on the German side, we get anthrax in the English survey. Once more, there is a consensus for the top answer, as both in the English and German survey the most mentioned animal people wish was not extinct was the dodo. Mammoths score high on both sides as well, but the thylacine got mentioned a lot more on the English side. And no one on the German side mentioned saber-toothed cats. And the accordion seems to grow in the category where I asked people to name something with wheels, as the items in the top 3 spots in both surveys are identical. In both cases, cars were the top answer, followed by bicycles and wheelchairs. Though the prevalence is still quite different. In the English survey, cars landed at 25.9%, but on the German side it was 42.9%. Bicycles were much more even at 13.5% and 14.3%, but wheelchairs were, in relative terms, mentioned more than twice as often on the English side. And on the German side, they had to tie with wheelbarrows. Buses and trains were also mentioned more often in the English survey, which makes it look as if there was a difference in the public transportation infrastructure. Name the easiest school subject to get good grades in, and we're back to very significant differences, as the top answer in the English survey was gym or physical education at 35.5% of responses, which, though it did take second place on the German side, did so with less than a third of the prevalence. The German survey was clearly won by religious education at over 45% of responses. A school subject where on a scale from 0 to 15, I got a 0, because I was graded on how much of a believer I was. So I fully agree with that grade. English came in second in the English survey. 2 participants explicitly added a comment that they mean English as a second language. On the German side, English tied for third place with German. Art, math, history and geography scored higher on the English side, whereas music got a higher percentage in the German survey. What kind of musical instrument would you hope your children would never want to play at home? The top 3 answers are the same in both surveys, and even in quite similar amounts. So we found something where the participants in the English and German surveys would pretty much agree upon. Yeah, it's drums, and trumpets, and bagpipes. Name a workplace a child should never visit their parents. And here we have some similarities, but also quite some differences. In both surveys, strip clubs and brothels are in the top 5, but in pretty much reversed order. Strip clubs scoring higher in the English survey, brothels on the German side. Jails or prisons scored higher on the English side, whereas 3 different government offices made it into the top 5 in the German survey. Namely, such obliged to help people in need. A unique entry on the English side was Epstein Island. In this final category, I asked for something that rhymes with a certain word. And I picked something that was written and pronounced the same way in both English and German. But they are not the same word, as the German word Tier actually means animal. Obviously, it would have been impossible to get identical results in both surveys, as well there are actually some words that both mean the same and are pronounced the same in both English and German, like here. Overall, these are rare exceptions. Also, English definitely offers more words that rhyme with tier than German. But even so, I was surprised by how domineering the top answer on the German side was, as more than half of the participants picked beer, which was also valid on the English side, but was only picked by about 9.5% of participants, with 3 other answers receiving more points, Fear becoming the top answer. Strangely, Peer would also have been valid in German, but wasn't mentioned once, and the same goes for queer.